This is the Wait Just an Infosec podcast, your weekly opportunity to tap into the minds of some of the world's foremost cybersecurity experts. Wait Just an Infosec is a weekly show live streamed on SANS Institute social media channels on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The show features a wide range of guests from across the InfoSec community. Whether we're diving into the weeds of the latest data breach or exploring the security implications of groundbreaking technology such as generative AI, each episode brings you new insight to keep you engaged in the industry, feed your fire for knowledge, and amplify your value as an InfoSec practitioner. Join the SANS community and gain free access to cutting-edge industry news, cybersecurity resources like technical research, and tools that can't be found elsewhere. Subscribe for free today at sans.org/join.
All right, folks. So if you've never been to a SANS event, it is an amazing place to learn. And remember, we're having events all the time, everywhere in the world. But what's fantastic about SANS courses is not only can you attend them in person, but you can attend those very events virtually live. So you are beamed into the class with all the physical in-person students, or there's another option for SANS courses, which is called on demand. It's pre-recorded, so you take the training on your own schedule. So you can do live in person, live virtually, or on demand, any way that fits your needs. But let's get to the main attraction today. So, like I said, ultimately, we are going to be talking about human risk. Why? Because in today's world, it is the biggest driver of breaches. We have the data to demonstrate it. MGM Caesars demonstrates it. But why is the human such a big risk? Why are they the primary attack vector? But most importantly, what can we do about it? So, folks, I would like to introduce Molly McLain Sterling. She is the goddess at Medtronic and their security culture program. So, Molly, say hi and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. And what a wonderful introduction. I have to add that to my tagline, goddess. Thank you. I'm the director of security culture at Medtronic and have the privilege of leading an amazing team. And I'm happy to talk about them today.
All right. So, folks, first of all, remember on the comments, start posting your questions. I'm going to be asking Molly some questions myself in just a moment. But also, when we're done, Molly and I will be going back to LinkedIn. And if there's any questions we were not able to answer, Molly and I will answer them on the LinkedIn page also. In fact, Brett, could you post the link to the LinkedIn page where people can ask their questions? So our moderator will do that. All right, so before we go into all the good details, Molly, what is your definition of security culture and why is it important?
The definition of security culture.
No, your definition. I'm curious what your definition is.
My definition of security culture is the feeling people have about security within their organizations and how that translates into their behaviors. So we need to have the action and the feeling together.
So Molly I'm so aligned with Molly, and that's why I was excited to have her. It's not a test. But first of all, folks, everybody always has a bit of a different definition. So whenever somebody says, hey, security culture, I always like to start with, well, what's your definition?
Absolutely.
Everybody has a different definition. By the way, that's true in just about everything in cybersecurity. Everybody has a different definition. What is vulnerability management? What is EDR? What is a SOC? Everybody has a slightly different definition. It's not right. It's not wrong, just different. So first, key word that Molly brought up, and it's so important, feelings, emotion. Culture is ultimately what people think and what people feel. It's very much emotion-based. And you'll notice in all of those terms, a very big one was empathy. Why is empathy so important? Because A, it's something we in the security world tend to suck at. And B, it's one of the reasons why we tend to have bad or weak security cultures. But the other thing, and a lot of people get this wrong, and this is why Molly really nailed it. Why do we want a strong security culture? Everybody says it, but nobody articulates the why. The reason why is people are far more likely to exhibit strong behaviors. So security culture doesn't magically make you secure. It creates an environment where people are far more likely to exhibit those secure behaviors.
Yeah.
Molly, anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think you nailed it. And I would, going back to what we said, or what you said about everybody says it a little bit differently, and everybody has a little bit different flavor of their definition of security culture. I think that's one of the key things to listen for when you're talking to other people, especially whether somebody calls themselves an influencer or a leader or a vendor or whatever they are. If they're saying there is only one right way to do it and this is how you do it, that's when you use caution. That's when you're like, not one person doesn't have all of the answers. So watch out for those folks. Otherwise, I think it's a really cool collaborative space that we can all learn from and continually grow.
And absolutely, every organization's culture is a little different also. So Molly, absolutely. All right, so we know what culture is. Ultimately, it's what people think and feel. So what is security culture? What people think and feel about cybersecurity. Things like, are they engaged? Do they feel it's important? Do they trust the security team? What do they think or feel about security policy, security training, things like that? And the challenge is the more positive, the more engaged people are, the more likely they are to exhibit those behaviors. So the reason I've invited Molly is not only because of her cool title, but she is one of those folks that has realized that it's not just security awareness training. It can't be just once a year engagement. Did you notice in that word cloud, one of the biggest words to pop out was continuous learning? So the challenge that Molly has accepted and has really developed quite well, she's developed a team to do this. Not one person, a team. So Molly, next question for you. First of all, why a team? Why can't this just be one person? And then what makes up a good team?
Yeah, saying that you need just one person for a security awareness team is like saying you need one person for all of IT. There's so much to educate and influence, and there's so much to do. And if you really want to drive your program and have elements, you need to be looking at that age-old adage of people, technology, and process. And I said it out of order, but move them around and it all still means the same thing. You need to be looking at all of those things for influencing behaviors.
All right, so that's the why. Now, what are some of the skills that you feel are so important? And how did you bring that board on the team? Why don't you talk us through what does your team look like and why?
Sure. So I started as a team of one at Medtronic, doing security awareness and a bunch of other things. And we've now grown to, I have 8 folks reporting to me. And it's great. I have 8 folks, and we, within our security culture program, we have 3 pillars: stakeholder engagement, traditional security awareness, or what we'd call traditional security awareness, and metrics and analytics. And all of those 3 things work together to drive the security culture at Medtronic. And we have about 100,000 employees in about 150 countries, give or take whatever acquisition or divestiture is happening at the moment. And growing it over time has happened by seeing those little windows of opportunity. I think that if you're trying to grow your team, because obviously I think everyone that's here in this session would say, well, yeah, I want a team. Of course I want a team. How you do that is by just seeing those little windows of opportunity and being able to jump and be really decisive when you have those opportunities. So, and it's going to be different for every organization. For us, it was just finding we have a little bit of extra money at the end of whatever quarter, and you make the pitch and you find somebody internally and you can move really quickly on it. And not to ramble on, but one of the best places to look for talent within your organization is in your IT support centers. It's a gold mine for folks that can do an awesome job within a security culture, security awareness space.
So it sounds like, first of all, what you're saying is you don't grow the team all at once. You grow the team over years organically.
Yes. Yeah. Because you have to show the value. I mean, you can't, it would be ridiculous to walk in and say, I need 8 people to do this right now. There's so many other things that you're always going to need more people. You're always going to need more money throughout your entire security organization. So you have to be really responsible with the resources and the resources they're asking for, and make really good use of them and show the value that you can bring. And a lot of that in the beginning, you can get off on the right foot by supporting the other initiatives within the security organization. So that's how we started. Really, of course, we did general awareness, but how do we bring that empathetic voice to the communications of all of the other security initiatives? And that really starts flipping the culture to say, oh, people are saying, thank you for telling me why we're doing this. Thank you for asking me for my feedback. Thank you for giving me a place that I can ask questions. These are all changes that can drive you in the right direction, and that's your foundation.
So could you give us an example of where you went just beyond security awareness training, but where you helped the security team, say in a communications rollout or something, and it had a real positive impact, and it just helped build your credibility and your team?
Yeah.
So an example.
Sure. So one of the really big projects we did in the past was our USB block. So that, people are we're used to doing that in the past, and we have a very large organization. And so one of the things that we helped with too is being able to deliver that message in different ways as it was rolled out in different geographies. So when we rolled that out to the Asia Pacific.
So what was the message you were rolling out?
The message is that you're not going to be able to use your USB anymore. It's going to be blocked. And here are the ways you can do it securely and safely. And that was one of the things that we brought to it is, okay, you guys are blocking whatever thing. Great. That's going to add security. Let's make sure that we're really rounding out what they can do and making it simple for them. So in our APAC region, they wanted a lot of discussion about it, a lot of resources. When we rolled it out to the Latin American region, they're like, we're good, just let's roll. So you can kind of balance those different cultures and get to know them and what resources are really going to help them feel comfortable with whatever initiative that you're deploying.
All right, and this is a great example, and I see this a lot. So what a typical security team would do in this situation is, hey, folks, we have a risk. Infection, malware via USB sticks, USB media. So very simple policy. We'll simply ban USB drives, USB sticks, and really reduce or mitigate that risk. It's very logical, but typically a security team would go is send out a very short email. Hey, folks, starting today, USB drives are banned. Have a good day. And then people will be like, what's going on? So what you're saying is you created a message, a little bit more empathy, saying, hey, folks, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. But here's some alternatives so you can still get your job done easy and efficient.
Yes. And essentially, you are the change management person, but just with that security flavor. So you're doing change management. You're almost doing a little bit of project management, and you're really being the advocate for the user. You're making sure that you're bringing the empathy and that perspective from the user. And you might think like, how could I possibly do that? I don't have time. But really, that's going to build your credibility and that positive reinforcement throughout the organization to get you more resources. So it's worth spending time there.
The question, something I've always run into is sometimes trying to sell the importance of security culture. The hardest sell is the security team.
Yeah.
How do you get them up? So like you go to a highly technical security team. Hey, folks, empathy is important. Emotions are feeling are important. How do you bridge that gap with the security team? Or is it they just see the examples like you just did and then they start seeing it organically? How do you approach that?
Great question. I think you have to approach them with empathy as well. So they're looking at it like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to get this out. I want to go. And you have to approach them with empathy and consider their feelings as well. But then sell it as you're taking a burden off of them. You're going to help prevent a bunch of screaming and annoyance and this going in a bad direction. And just like you said, once they start seeing that, oh, this actually helps us to spend just a little bit of time on the front end so we don't have to do a ton of extra political meetings at the end, it just will naturally happen, and you'll have more work than you can take on, basically, because everyone will be coming to you with their security initiatives. And then you can say, okay, which security initiatives have the biggest impact on our employees and focus on those. And that's when you can start asking for more resources.
Very, very cool. So in other words, small wins, build on that credibility, and then over time, build your team organically.
Yep.
A person a year or something like that.
Yeah, well, and I think you can look to see what other needs can you serve throughout your security organization. So that's how we got the built up the analytics and metrics function within our group, to say we want to have a central place where we can have all these metrics and use these numbers and these metrics for our storytelling throughout the security organization. And of course, all of the different groups within the security organization have their own metrics, but we can then develop an overall risk platform and accountability platform and use those to help deliver the message.
I love this concept of 3 pillars. I mean, it's not only a team, but you have sub-teams. I mean, that is so cool.
Yep.
What are some of the key skills, values, or what do you look for when having somebody joining your team? Because you've mentioned emotion is important, but is that something you're looking for? Or what's a good team look like?
This is the coolest part. I asked my team this yesterday, and we're all over the US. So this is all on Teams and everybody's writing all their things. And I have my notes up here. One of the things that I noticed the most about my team is, and why they're so great, is their adaptability. We're constantly having change within our organization. We're constantly having to adjust to new threats that are coming in, new risk models, whatever it may be. We're used to change, and we got to be ready to go. And all of them are amazing at that. They are just so great at that. And they'll always jump in to a new challenge. One of the other things is, of course, empathy. A lot of them have come from the IT support center. They can understand the frustrated person on the other end of the call, and they can respond with empathy. And
Go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, I have a big range of different types of talent. I mean, one of my folks said that I almost have like a little mini IT org. I have technical people, I have process people, I have people. So it's you just got to get that diversity of thought in there and kind of watch the magic happen. And this team recognizes that about each other, and they are so supportive of each other. That's the other thing. We set that, like, if you're talking about a cultural norm, we set that cultural norm in the beginning that you support each other, you're going to go far. If you fight against each other or try to like one up each other, obviously, you're going to struggle. But so they're super supportive of each other, and that just helps them excel.
Now, I've got still a bunch of questions, but I do want to also let our community get a chance also. So here's a fantastic, it kind of leads to this empathy idea.
Sure.
Is when it comes to building a strong security culture, people are going to make mistakes. They're going to violate policies either through negligence or just human error. And the question is, we got so many questions, it keeps scrolling up, is touch on how an organization should respond to violations of a security policy. So in other words, perhaps they didn't know about it, they did know about it, they ignored it, they clicked on a link in a phishing simulation. How do you approach it when your workforce does something wrong?
Sure. It depends on how big the risk is, or how big the impact is, I guess I would say. And I think there's a pendulum. I always talk about a pendulum that you can't go all the way carrot all the time. I know we all want to, and that would be wonderful, but it's not all rainbows and unicorns all the time. Sometimes there has to be a stick, depending on, what the violation was. If it's a mistake and you've found that you actually have a gap in your training, of course, then some empathy needs to be delivered or used, I guess, in that situation. But it really kind of depends on what the situation is. If a law was broken, then there's gonna be some impact. But if you clicked on a phishing simulation, that's a simulation. That's what it's there for. That's that teaching moment. And if you respond with a lot of kind of harshness and finger shaking and that kind of stuff, you're not going to build that psychological safety within your organization. So as much as you can use carrot and that softer side, but just knowing in reality, there are times when you do have to use a harsher approach.
So Molly brought up a key word, safety. Do people feel safe? That is one of the ways I look for, or an indicator of a strong security culture. So people ask me, how do you know you have a strong security culture? Here's a great question. I'll ask employees, or you can think of this as a survey question, how safe do you feel reporting an incident even when you know you caused the incident? So I'm not talking simulations. I'm saying real incident, because we spend a tremendous amount of time teaching people how to look for an incident and how to report it. But are they going to report it if they know they caused it? And that's where that feel of trust and safety is so important.
That's one of the questions we're asking our ambassadors over time. So when they join our program, it's a year long. We'll ask them at the beginning, the middle, and the end to see if that's changed as they've gotten to know us more. So it's kind of a cool way to do that human behavior measurement.
Yep. And another one to follow up to what Molly was saying is another favorite indicator I like is not how often are you reaching out to and communicating to your workforce, but how often is your workforce reaching out to and engaging your security team? Do people trust and engage, or do they avoid the security team at all costs?
Yep.
So here's another fantastic question. So culture, when we're going into people's attitudes, perceptions, and beliefs, obviously training is where you start. And you mentioned that. But how do you go above and beyond just training?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the ambassador programs, for myself is one of the things that we've really seen a lot of value and change. I see that Mark Harvey just mentioned something that in the comments that he feels that training needs to be better, and people usually just click through it. Agreed. I mean, I know we have to do some of it from a compliance perspective and a regulatory perspective, depending on the organization that you're in. But that ambassador program is really bringing forth the feelings and the asks of the employees that you're trying to educate and influence on. So if you can ask them what they want to know and what they need to know for their families, then that can really help get them engaged.
What's really neat about artificial intelligence is there's a point in time in the future where you create the training and the artificial intelligence then modifies the training for each person. Do you want this training to be funny or serious? Do you want a British accent or Australian accent? Do you want imagery? So that's one of the things we're looking from an engagement perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, Molly, if we could go back to, culture is a bit of a squishy thing, and it can be hard to define. So I was very interested that you have a pillar of metrics. What's that look like? How do you measure? How do you communicate that?
So we're really looking at we're the central function for metrics throughout our entire global security office. So we will create the dashboard that our CISO will bring to the audit committee and the board of directors when they go and speak to them. And we'll create a risk accountability dashboard. We call it RAD for short. And so that helps us tell the stories of what needs to change within the organization when we go and talk to our colleagues.
And then how do you communicate things like security culture? How do you communicate the human side to leadership from a metrics perspective? What are you communicating? How?
Yeah, I think we're learning and growing, along with everybody else. Certainly, it's easy to look at phishing sims and real sims, but a lot of the things that we're looking at now are with our ambassadors and their specific behavior change, because we have a large amount of ambassadors and alumni.
Well, how about this?
Yeah.
What is ambassadors? What is a security ambassador program?
For us, a security ambassador, and again, this is different for every organization. For us, a security ambassador program is a really beloved thing, actually, and we usually have a waiting list. It's a year-long program where we drop really creative episodes, almost like a little YouTube video with some challenges and some interactive pieces. And then there's a very vibrant Teams community where people are sharing different ways that they're sharing security messages or things that have happened at home. And that is a huge engagement for us. And then when they graduate from that program, they go into the alumni network and continue on with their advocacy, basically, for security and learning for themselves.
So we can do a lot of ambassadors. Are they like employees, volunteers?
Yes, sorry. Any employee within the company gets to do this program at no cost to, there's no chargebacks, there's no nothing. We want to take away all the barriers to being able to open up security to a very diverse audience. So you'll have folks that don't know what phishing is to folks that work in product security. It's everybody within the company at all levels.
And then real quick, roughly how many ambassadors do you have, and why do you feel it's such an important part of your culture?
We have about 1,000 people that have gone through the program. And this is the coolest story. I love telling this. Before, when I used to go to different functions at work and I'd say, I'm with the Global Security Office, people would groan and they would launch right into, this is why it's awful working with the security organization. Now, when I go places, people are like, oh, the ambassador program, your team does the ambassador program. I love that. My mom got this phishing scam and I learned about it and I shared this stuff with them and I got my team to do. I mean, it's completely different. The way that we are greeted and interacted with is completely different. And that, I think, is that feeling for us of, ooh, we got to lean into this. We got to keep doing this, that people are coming to us versus us begging them to participate.
And my impression is the reason that can be so effective is instead of the security team talking to the workforce, it's the workforce talking to their peers.
Yeah.
So they're talking to each other in their own language, and developers are more likely to trust a developer or, a sales guy. So, wow. So it's really been that impactful.
Yes. Yeah. It's really wonderful. And again, credit to the team. They revived it and have been just doing a fantastic job. And pretty much everyone in my group has had some kind of interaction with it. And we actually won a CIO award for it within our company for that particular program this year. So that was really great.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here in a moment, Molly, but any other words you'd like to share with our community about culture?
I think when you're building your security culture dream team, think outside the box. You want to have diversity of thought. You want to have folks that are resilient. They can be technical or non-technical. That part doesn't really matter, but as long as they're adaptable and empathetic, they're going to make a great person for your team.
And I love that term, empathetic. It sounds like such a vague word. And when I originally heard it, I was not a believer. But after being on the culture side for about 10 years, every year I get a little bit more, this empathy thing, there might be, something onto it.
Yeah. You know what? At the end of the day, you want to get your work done, and using empathy is going to help you get what you want. So there you go. If you're not into it, at least it gets you where you want to be.
And I loved your comment on, because I always struggle. How do you engage the security team? With empathy.
With empathy. Yeah.
I love it. All right, Molly, you rock. Folks, you can reach out to her. Also, if you want to learn more about Molly, earlier we posted the YouTube link, and actually they're going to repost it again. Molly spoke at the SANS Human Risk Summit in August, 2 months ago, on security culture. It's a really cool talk. In fact, it was probably one of the top 3 highest rated talks at the summit. So we just posted it yesterday. The YouTube link, I'm going to ask Brett and team to repost that on the chat channel. But otherwise, Molly, thank you so much. And I'm assuming people can reach out to you on LinkedIn and cyberspace.
Yes, absolutely. Love to benchmark with folks.
All right, folks. All right, Molly, thank you so much. Now, folks, we're going to wrap things up, but before we're due, we're going to have Jasmine join us. Jasmine is going to briefly talk about something new within the SANS ecosystem, the whole idea of about workforce development. So, Jasmine, you're on.
Hi everyone, this is Lauren Zabrick, co-founder of the online social media movement Share the Mic at Cyber, which aims to uplift the voices and the work of Black cyber and privacy professionals. We are so grateful for our partnership with the SANS Institute, and together we are excited to bring you this segment featuring members of the Share the Mic at Cyber community for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Enjoy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Jackson. I'm the founder and executive director of the Accelerated Training Program, a cybersecurity digital literacy program in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am also an adjunct professor at the City University of Seattle in Seattle, Washington. That is remote, as I live in Charlotte. Where I teach undergraduate and graduate courses in cybersecurity. I've also taught at Drexel University in Philadelphia, also remote, in undergraduate cybersecurity courses. I've been a cyber professional for over 10 years now. I started with a blog originally called Passion for Pen Testing. It has since changed to the Fluffy 007, which is my handle on all social media. And with that blog, I solve CTF challenges as well as give advice on perspectives, cybersecurity professionals to gain entry into the field and talk about cybersecurity education. So this talk today will be more so around digital literacy and relates to Pillar 1 of the National Cybersecurity Education and Workforce Strategy. So as I said before, I have a nonprofit, the Accelerated Training Program, and we're focused on providing accessible cybersecurity education to K through 12 students from underrepresented backgrounds. And so right now we have an autumn cybersecurity workshop with one of our partners, the Best Buy Tech Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. And when we first started the workshop, our first question we asked was, what do you know about cyber? And a lot of the answers were we really don't know anything about cyber. I see on TV, cyber's hot, there's a lot of jobs, but I really don't know a lot about it. So with our program, we are providing curriculum and challenges to teach these students about cybersecurity and also to get them invigorated and excited to hopefully pursue this field as they get older. So this aligns with pillar number 1 of the National Cybersecurity Workforce and Education Strategy, as that pillar is to provide essential cybersecurity skills to all Americans. Right now, we're focused on the K through 12 space, but we are looking to expand to collegiate apprenticeships and other populations as well. So what I will say is a lot of times people are like, what is digital literacy? Digital literacy is where you focus on providing people access to desktops, laptops, or devices. So even in 2023, there are a population of people who have never turned on a computer, a population of people who have never accessed the internet. So digital literacy is combating that with teaching those populations how to turn on a computer, how to work on a computer, and hopefully how to obtain employment in the tech space. So for instance, with digital literacy, there was the Digital Equity Act, which is also used, which is an act that is used to provide digital skills and training, online accessibility, and empowering rural communities to get internet and to get entered and acclimated into the tech world. So that is a little bit about me. If you want to know more about the Accelerated Training Program, you can visit us on all social media platforms at the Accelerated Training Program. And if you want to know more about myself, you can go to social media and type in the Fluffy 007, which is my handle on all social media. So thank you so much for your time and have a good day.
All right. So that was Jasmine on Workforce. Now, before we wrap things up, what we're going to do is just have one more short little video from Brandon Evans. Brandon is a SANS instructor. He's going to be talking about some of the recent incidents that have gone on today and one or two SANS courses that can help you on these type of incidents. So Brandon is up.
Hey everyone, this is Brandon Evans. There have been a lot of huge security incidents in the past month and change. Arguably, the two most notable ones were the Microsoft signing key compromise and the MGM breach. In between, though, there was an incident that a lot of people may have overlooked. On September 18th, 2023, Wiz Research reported an incident related to the Microsoft AI research team. It resulted in the compromise of 38 terabytes of data leaked from the Azure storage service. And this included computer backups for Microsoft employees. These backups contained the passwords to Microsoft services, secret keys, and Microsoft Teams messages. And those Teams messages, by the way, probably contained many other secrets, both related to Microsoft and their employees. Now, I thought this article and research was fantastic. And Wiz concluded that this demonstrates how organizations need to be careful as they start to use AI. Because they say modern generative AI requires a very large amount of data. So as a result, this large amount of data is critical to secure because some of it's going to be sensitive. Now, I understand their approach. I understand their consideration because AI is a very hot topic right now. I'm doing a lot of research in this area that I hope I'll be able to share with the SANS community shortly, and it's a lot of fun. However, I think the issue is a lot more fundamental than this being a new threat related to AI. It's really about securing cloud storage. After all, the sensitive data wasn't actually AI data. It wasn't an AI model, and it's actually employee data. Now, as you'll see shortly, it was commingled with AI data, but the AI data itself was not the issue. Now, the size of the AI downloads might throw off people. They may see a very large download happening and say, oh, that's normal because this is coming from our AI system. The industry talks a lot about cloud storage services. It is likely that you've heard about Amazon S3 and leaky buckets. And it seems like every single month, there's another compromise caused by a public bucket. Last July, there were 3 terabytes of airport data that was leaked. And in May, Toyota leaked the vehicle location data of millions of drivers. So you would think that by now, people would know better and they would keep their storage closed. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated than that because both AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud have additional mechanisms for sharing files. One of these mechanisms is called signed URLs. And in Azure, these are called shared access signatures, otherwise known as SAS tokens. So if you have a valid SAS that has the appropriate permission, you can download files from an Azure storage account. This will not work for just public containers. It'll work for private files and accounts, and even bypass many of the other protections that exist to keep your data private in the cloud. Now, SAS tokens have legitimate uses. It's not that this is a vulnerability, because SASs are very similar to a feature that's very common in something like Dropbox or Box. Some people choose to share files by generating a link to it. A lot of people like to do this because it's a lot easier than inviting someone to Dropbox, having them log in and access the file. So those links that you generate, anybody who gets that link is able to download the file, even if they aren't logged in. Now, this is exactly what a SaaS does in Azure. Nonetheless, there are some best practices associated with Azure SaaSes. Firstly, the token should grant permission to the least amount of data possible. We only want to give access to the data that we want to share. Users should only be able to read that file, not necessarily write to it. And the URL should expire after a period of time so that it's not indefinitely being shared. Unfortunately, none of these practices were followed in the case of the Microsoft AI team. They exposed a SaaS granting full permissions over their entire storage account forever. Now, this SaaS was exposed in their public GitHub repository. And here at SANS, we talk a lot about how you shouldn't put secrets in source code. But this was a unique case because Microsoft AI did not expose the SaaS by accident. They purposefully provided the token to the users so that they can download open source AI models. Now, the core issue is that this token allowed the user to do much, much more than download this thing that Microsoft AI wanted us to share. Now, thank goodness that Wiz found this and disclosed it, because if they didn't, attackers would actually be able to poison that model. Now, there are a couple of types of SaaS tokens in Azure. There's user delegated, which means that you can use your Azure AD credentials to share a file with someone. And this is the best way of using SaaS tokens. In comparison, we have service SaaSes and account SaaSes. Service SaaS works for an individual service, be it a blob service or file service, whereas an account SaaS is for the entire storage account. And that is what happened in the case of Microsoft AI. So SaaSes are something that everyone needs to look out for. And if you're going to use them, make sure you are using your Azure AD credentials with a user delegated SaaS instead of storage SaaSes. Now, this is a topic that we talk about extensively in my course, which I teach, Sec 510 Public Cloud Security, AWS, Azure, and GCP. We have an entire day on data security, and one of the core topics that Eric Johnson and I have put into the class is surrounding data exfiltration with things like SaaS tokens. So I hope that this information was interesting and useful in lieu of the recent breach, and I hope that you'll take Sec 510 in the future.
Thank you for listening to the Wait Just an Infosec podcast. Remember to join us live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a new episode of Wait Just an Infosec. You can watch at sans.org/WJAI or go to the SANS LinkedIn or YouTube channels. The Wait Just an Infosec podcast will be released every Wednesday at noon. Thanks for listening. See you next week.